So hi everyone, just tell you a little bit about why I'm doing this charity. So when I initially found out about having breast cancer, I was terrified. I was terrified of having, and they said I had to have chemo. I was like, it's not happening. So, but I had to have it because they said this cancer's like dead aggressive and it'll kill me. So I was like, really? So I was absolutely gutted. Frightened, and it was mainly fear of the unknown, to be fair, because it's not been really bad. It's not been as bad as what was in my head. And like the oncologist said, what you're scared of is lung cancer. I said, I'm scared of what might happen, which is not me.
So first of all, what was my first reaction to having cancer? I think when you told the news, and in my case it was very sudden, it was an hour after I'd had a scan, that you go through all the typical ones that you have with grief. So you're in denial, you have anger, start bargaining, you get slightly depressed, and then it moves on to acceptance. What I would say is, because obviously you're perfectly conscious with all this information, it means that you move very quickly to the acceptance stage, and then you start thinking of the practicalities of it. And I think that was very important for me to get to that stage and then be able to do something about it.
I turned up to chemo, guitar in hand, thought, well, you sat there for 3 hours, I'll have a jam. Because but I didn't know, they put a cannula in your hand, so you have to keep your hands still. And then they said, because I had really thick hair, they said, put this thing on your head, freezes your scalp and it stops your hair from falling out as much. So I've had 3 chemos so far and I've still got quite a bit of hair. I've got a bit of a bald patch here and one here, but so you've got to have it quite tight on your head, and you get wrapped up in a blanket because you get really cold as well.
Well, what was it like when I first turned up for chemo? Well, I think I didn't know what to expect. All I'd really come across was anecdotes and things I'd read about or seen on television. So I wasn't particularly aware of what to expect, other than that I thought I'll lose my hair and I'll feel a bit sick. Ironically, because I've had, I think, post-chemo hair since about 1982. That was not a problem. I wasn't worried about losing my hair. I was worried about being sick, and ironically, that was the one thing that I never was, because obviously that gets dealt with tablets. So turning up, it was all very strange. It was all very surreal. It was a comfort to be there with lots of other people, both from the staff side and from the patient side. But the actual first one is traumatic because you just don't know what to expect.
When I look in the mirror in the morning, I don't look ill. I don't look ill, and I quite like that. I feel ill sometimes, but I look alright. And that has just made quite a big difference to me. It's kind of psychologically, I'm alright. So initially I was just going to do a charity gig, didn't know what for, and one of the nurses said, oh, help us out with this. So they'd already raised about, I think they were up to £4,000, and other people have raised money for the same thing. So I think they might be up to about £6,000 now. So this is why we've got a target of 22,000. This is why well, let's try and raise some money, because I'm 53, so I'm getting on a bit now.
How do I cope with living with cancer? Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier about the acceptance. Once you've accepted it and you're dealing with the practicalities, it's all then very much about making sure you do the right things. And doing the right things for me was understanding exactly what instructions you were given, what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you can drink, what you can't drink, not try and be silly. But I think the other aspect that I've followed is not to try and become psychosomatic with it and start imagining things. So the way to cope is, the traditional cliche, one day at a time, which becomes natural, but also to try and remain positive and understand that as long as I'm not going to do anything silly, I think positivity is very important. It's very important not to be sucked into all the things that you imagine that you would have coping with cancer. You do have to face it. In my case, I was diagnosed with stage 4 with terminal cancer. You have to accept that it's life-limiting and life-changing. But you can get run over by a bus. You can easily have other things happen, and bad things happen, unfortunately, to people all the time. So you've got to assume that you fight for everything you've got, and you don't know how long. People say, I was given 3 months or 6 months. You're not. You're given the statistics, and those statistics can either be out of date or they can be wrong. In your case, everybody's different, but I think we all know that. How does it affect your family? That's been probably the hardest thing to take, because you are the central point. You feel that you are getting the necessary attention and love and concern. But for someone who's a member of the family, and I can experience this by having a member of my family dying of cancer before, you feel powerless. You really don't know how much to feel and not to feel. You're not sure what to say. You're not sure how things are going to pan out. You worry. It's a much bigger strain for the family because you can't do anything about it. And I do feel for them. And you can see it in their eyes. And I've seen it in the eyes of families of other patients when I've been at chemotherapy. And there is a desire to mask the incredible sorrow that you're feeling and the feeling of powerless. And I do think that families need to be applauded because they do a lot. It's a thankless task. They're not the centre of attention, but at the same time, they're going through many of that grief of the mental strain that the patient themselves concerned. So I hold my hat out to my family, who were kind anyway, but have been extremely kind and considerate. But I also know that they're going through something as well.
But when you see a young person go in, and they've got children, and they've got really thick hair, you just think, and others have said, it's the children that they look at you and it's like, oh, my mum's poorly. Luckily my kids are all grown up and understand, but it's for me. Keeping my hair is for me and for my husband John, because I said to him, I've got big bald patches, I'll shave it off, and he was like, no, keep it on a bit longer. So I was like, yeah, alright. So yeah, it's helped me to get through an awful time in my life, and I'm really appreciative of it. So hopefully it'll help others too. But they cost a fortune, and it cost 22,000 for a double one, and for 15,000 for the single ones. So they're quite expensive. So that's why I'm doing it, because for some people, they're like, no, just shave it off, I'm not bothered. But for other people, like me, I didn't want that.
I think one of the things you're conscious of, particularly in my case, with over 50 doses of chemotherapy, that you are a huge strain on the NHS resources. I mean, it's a lot of money and a lot of time and effort and a lot of staffing. And I think it was an attempt really to just give a small piece of something back to help other people. And met up with Julie, and she just suggested the Cold Cap charity. We thought that was a very good one to do. It makes a difference to an individual, and if there are a shortage of cooling caps, then this can help, because obviously different people in different ways get affected by having cancer and chemotherapy, and I'm sure that losing hair for a lot of people never a problem for me, and we felt that we'd be making a difference, a small difference, making a small contribution. So that was the driving force. Not sure when we started this how much money we're likely to raise, and probably still are not now, but it's something that's also, from a selfish point of view, has been a very good source of distraction, stopped us feeling sorry for ourselves and actually doing something worthwhile. So it is a great pleasure to be doing it, and we've had fantastic support, fantastic response, and it's for something that's for good and it's positive. So we'll be delighted that we're able to present something which is making such a contribution.